The Premier League title won by Arsenal in the 2003-2004 season is one of the best titles won by an English club in history, if not the best, and that's after they won it without a single defeat, and everyone called them the Invincible, something no other club has managed to do, despite the passage of over 20 years, and more than that, they achieved it without losing any money, unlike their competitors who were spending generously at the time. That's why I have decided to explore together how they did it from pre-season to the end of the season, so keep watching until the end. To really discover the 2003-2004 season, let's go back to the season just before, in 2002-2003. And what happened to them this year is the same thing that happened to them when they lost the league to Man City in the final few rounds last year. Because in 2003, they were leading the league by 5 points over Man United. And they carried on like that until game week 30, when they suddenly lost to Blackburn by 2 goals. And in game week 32, they drew with Aston Villa. So now they are equal with Man United on points, but they are still leading on goal difference, and if they carry on like that, they can win the title. But unfortunately on game week 36, and despite being 2 goals ahead of Bolton, they draw in the last few minutes. As a result, they lost first place, and worse than that, the team collapsed and lost another game to Leeds, which widened the gap between them and Man United to 5 points. So they ended up winning the title, of course. Arsenal ended their season disappointed, but they turned things around positively. By that I mean in that summer, Arsene Wenger sat down to analyze his team and see why they have not been able to make it to the last round. Because he knew he had a strong team with good players, but at the same time, he had weaknesses that he needed to correct. So he started by changing goalkeeper David Seaman, who is 39 and older for the challenge Arsenal will face. So the coach started negotiating with Dortmund goalkeeper Jens Lehmann, who is a good keeper and has experience. So they signed him for 3.5 million euros. But there were many people who criticized the transfer and said that he should rely on second goalkeeper Stuart Tyler, who is still young and will benefit the club for years to come. But Arsene Wenger knew him very well, because in the previous season he played 8 games in the Premier League, in which Arsenal missed 10 points, and spent his entire career on loan between clubs, and played in them only 34 games in the Premier League in his entire career. He also signed left-back Gael Clichy for less than €500,000 as a substitute for Ashley Cole, and finally the centre-back Philip Sanders with €3.5 million. And with this 3 modest signing, Arsene Wenger has closed the summer transfer market. But the problem was that not far away in London, Abramovich bought Chelsea and set about buying the best players on the market, and spent more than €155 million that summer, a large sum that could have bought an entire team made up of the best talent at that time. But Arsene Wenger didn't care about all that. He insisted that he had a strong and harmonious team, so there was no need to sign new players who didn't know each other. But at the same time, he decided to change their positions, and started with Kolo Toure, who was playing as a midfielder, and changed his position to centre-back alongside Sol Campbell, creating a defensive line that could not be crossed. Was he the only one he changed his position? Of course not, but also Lauren, who is 27 years old and had played his whole career as a midfielder, and so he decided to play him as a right back. Although the player rejected the idea at first, but he had an exceptional season. So with this team, a new goalkeeper and an almost completely changed defense, the coach started the season with 4-4-2, with goalkeeper Jens Lehmann, centre-backs Campbell and Toure, and Lauren as a right back and Cole as left back. In the middle, we have the captain and one of the best midfielders of his generation and in history, Patrick Vieira, and beside him, the Brazilian Gilberto Silva. And on the right, we have Freddie Ljungberg, who is considered the best Swedish player of his time. And on the left, we have one of the best players to have played to Arsenal, Robert Peers. And in attack, we have one of the best Dutch players in history, Dennis Bergkamp, who plays as a first or second striker, supporting the first striker, Thierry Henry. With this team, pre-season began with friendly matches in the summer, so the coach began to try out what he had created so far. But the friendlies did not live up to expectations, especially as they started with 1 defeat and 2 draws, while in a total of 9 games, the team won 4, drew 4 and lost 1. However, Arsene Wenger is very satisfied with his defense, because what he expected has happened. With the two central defenders characterized by Campbell's experience and strength, and Torre's speed and strength, no player can pass them. Speaking of Kolo Torre, that's Sama's legendary brother Yaya Torre, he auditioned to play for Arsenal in their match against Barnet, which ended in a draw. But unfortunately, he failed to convince Arsene Wenger of his abilities. And you know the rest of his career.
Where would Yaya Toure be in your list of regrets?
Up at the top. It's not because we did not want to sign him, but he went to Ukraine. We needed to wait for his passport in Belgium.
After that, when I left Arsenal, I realized that I'm making huge mistakes.
Feel like you missed an opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It hurt me.
And after the pre-season, 5 days later the official games started, and he lost the first trophy of the season, losing the FA Community Shield to Man United on penalties. And Arsene Wenger looked angry and said, "I would have preferred to have had 2 more weeks in pre-season, especially for the French players who played in the Confederations Cup." He looked angry because a week later the Premier League starts. And now I want you to excuse me, because I'm going to mention what happened at some of Arsenal's games, as well as some of their opponents' games won't, because that's the only way you can know what happened exactly this season. So on August 16th, the league began for Arsenal, and their first game was against Everton. Although Campbell was sent off, they won by 2-1. But even Man United and Chelsea won their games. In the second round, Arsenal led Middlesbrough by 3 goals in the first 20 minutes, and the game ended with 4 goals. As if Arsenal were announcing that they were going to fight for the title, especially as they won all their following games before the international break, while Man United lost a game to Southampton and Chelsea drew with Blackburn, making Arsenal the league leaders. But after the international break, they unfortunately drew with newly promoted Portsmouth, a result that put an end to their winning streak. Especially as a week later, they would travel to Old Trafford to face Man United, a match that was called later the Battle of Old Trafford, because it was indeed a battle, even if it was a tactical match par excellence, because of the mutual respect that reigned between the two teams. But in the 80th minute, everything changed, as Vieira received a second yellow card and was sent off, reducing Arsenal to 10 men. And in the last minute, Man United won a penalty. But fortunately for Arsenal, Nistelrooy hit the crossbar and missed it. And then the game was over. But it's not over yet, because Arsenal players attacked Nistelrooy, which led to a fight between players from both teams.
But it's not finished yet, they're all around Ruud van Nistelrooy. There's another fight going on between Lauren and Giggs. There are people off the bench trying to pull the players apart.
As a result, the English Football Association banned them from several matches and fined Arsenal £175,000, the largest fine ever imposed on a club by the Football Association. The match took place on September 21st, and Arsenal continued to win most of their games until the end of 2003. But although they didn't lose any games, they lost first place to Man United, because Arsenal drew a large number of their games, where they drew in 6 out of 19 games, although United lost in 3 and drew in 1, because so far unjustified draws have cost Arsenal 12 points. So the winter transfer window opened, and Arsene Wenger allocated €20 million, a significant sum at the time, to sign Spain's top talent, the 20-year-old right winger José Antonio Reyes from Sevilla. And they closed the market again with only one signing. Although Arsenal started the year 2004 with another slip-up, with a draw against Everton, but after 2 rounds, Man United drew with Newcastle, and then lost to Wolves. And from that round, Arsenal remained in the first place until the end of the season. Man United then collapsed, losing and drawing on many occasions, even losing second place to Chelsea and finishing third, 15 points behind Arsenal. But in the last game week, Arsenal found themselves on the brink of losing their nickname the Invincible Team, because they faced Leicester City, who needed to win to avoid relegation, while Arsenal had won the league 4 games earlier. So Leicester took an early lead of 1-0, seemingly dominating the match, and the Arsenal players looked helpless. However, at halftime, Arsene Wenger motivated the team, highlighting the opportunity to make history, and indeed, Arsenal came back strongly in the second half to secure a 2-1 victory. So they finished the season unbeaten with 26 wins and 12 draws.
History has been made. Arsenal have gone through an entire league campaign without losing.
Arsenal were awarded the Gold Trophy for this achievement, and so far, no team has repeated what they did, and their unbeaten run continued until the following season after 49 games when they lost to Man United. And if you think it's a coincidence what they did, you would be wrong, because the previous season they had also started the season with several games unbeaten in all official and friendly matches, including 9 Premier League games and a total of 30 games. At the time, Arsene Wenger said that Arsenal could finish the season unbeaten in all competitions, and that it's every club's dream. And they don't just say that, but just a month after that statement, Arsenal lost to Everton. Many believe that this statement was responsible for Arsenal losing the league that season. That's why in the 2003-2004 season, they set this as a target, which they managed to achieve. But unfortunately, they only won the Premier League, because coincidentally Man United and Chelsea, who deprived them of the league, also deprived them of other important titles, because in the space of a week, they were knocked out of the FA Cup by Man United, and 3 days later, they were knocked out of the Champions League by Chelsea, despite the fact that they were in a position to win those titles, especially the Champions League, which Porto ended up winning. Also, they were eliminated from these competitions in April, so everyone expected them to collapse in the league too, but they were wrong.
We are there and we want to win it as well, as much as they want to.
And we can't talk about this season without talking about Thierry Henry, who was unstoppable. Without him, they wouldn't have been able to do what they did, because he scored 30 goals and assisted 6. Everyone considered him to be the best player in the world, and that he was going to win the Ballon d'Or. But unfortunately, he didn't come second or third, he came fourth. So the prize was stolen from him for 2 consecutive seasons, because the previous season he had come second, scoring 30 goals and providing 28 assists, far more than the one who has won the prize. And recently, Thierry Henry commented about why he didn't win it, and said that winning the prize depends on the opinion of journalists, and that there is no point in debating it.
When you look at the votes in the history of it, not only my year, every year, you look at the first 3, you're like, really?
To be honest, I see what's happening to them now as the same thing that happened in 2003, as if history was being rewriting, because last year they lost the title in the final few rounds, and during the summer, Arteta analyzed the team, tried to reduce its weaknesses with new signing. Also, Chelsea were bought by a new owner, who changed the whole team and spent crazy amount of money. So Arsenal started the season very well, announcing that they were going to fight for the title, and as usual, draw a lot of games. So I expected them to finish the season unbeaten, as they had done before. But they already lost. Despite this, they have a chance to make history again, and there is nothing holding them back like before, because after winning the title in 2004, Arsenal started to decline every year because of the stadium they were building, which put them into crisis and led them to the loss of their best players year after year.
The money went into the stadium, and we were losing players every single year after that.
Despite that, winning the Premier League without losing a single game remains a source of immense pride for all Arsenal fans to this day. Because as we said, after 20 years, no team has been able to repeat what they did. And with the increasing number and ability of competitors in the Premier League, I don't think anyone will be repeating that anytime soon.